In the cosmic dark, there was a hidden jewel, a world of blue oceans, green forests, and golden deserts, turning silently through space for billions of years. This was Earth, alive but unaware, its creatures moving without thought, waiting for a spark. Out in the galaxy, life was already brilliant. The Milky Way was a tapestry of ancient civilizations, empires of wisdom, and fleets of explorers. But where there is brilliance, there is often conflict. And that conflict had a name, the Sanctari. The Sanctari called themselves the keepers of purity. Their creed was a weapon, their doctrine absolute. To them, purity meant flesh, untouched by science, tradition unaltered by time, and devotion to a single, all-consuming flame. Anyone who denied it had to be extinguished. Their fleets burned worlds in holy fire, their chants echoing across the void as they purged everything they deemed impure. Among their countless targets were the Jagies, a race of unparalleled intellect and masters of genetics. The Jagies didn't seek power. They sought to unlock the hidden potential of life itself. They believed science was a gift, a way to help all living things heal, live longer, and thrive. But to the Sanctari, this was the ultimate blasphemy. The Jagies were branded defilers, corruptors of the natural order. Hunted and driven from their homes, the Jagies scattered across the galaxy like refugees. Their numbers dwindled with each relentless pursuit until only one vessel remained, the Gaia. It carried the final hope of their entire civilization, a seed of their knowledge and their very essence. Drifting through the cosmos, they found Earth a planet untouched, teeming with primitive, vibrant life. Here, the Jagies saw a chance to preserve their legacy not through conquest, but through a final, desperate act of creation. They studied Earth's creatures, the dolphins, the elephants, the birds, and, they chose, the primate. Curious, adaptable, with a glimmer of something more in its eyes, they prepared as subjects, a male and a female, to become living archives, to carry the entire genetic and cultural heritage of the Jagies people within them. But fate is often cruel. Just as their work began, the Sanctari discovered them. Their warship descended upon the Gaia with fire and righteous fury. As the battle raged, the Jagies scientists worked desperately, encoding their very being into the DNA of the two primates. In their haste, they overlooked a critical detail. The primates' genes were uniquely, powerfully adaptable. When fused with the advanced Jagies code, an unpredictable cascade of mutations began. Moments later, a devastating strike shattered the Gaia. The ship, their last sanctuary, plummeted from orbit, crashing into the continent we now call Africa. In that fiery impact, the Jagies perished. Their long, brilliant history was extinguished forever, yet against all odds, the two primates survived. Their altered genes, a fusion of Jagies intellect and earthly resilience, allowed them to heal and endure. They escaped the wreckage and vanished into the wild. As time passed, the mutations unfolded in ways no one could have predicted. They learned to stand upright. They shed their thick fur. They fashioned tools from stone and wood. And then they began to speak. Language blossomed. Thought deepened, merged. Thousands upon thousands of years passed, and from those two lone survivors, a new species arose. Modern humans. We are the carriers of a forgotten legacy, born not just of this world, but of the stars. We are the unintended children of a galactic war, the last echo of the Jagies, fused with the wild heart of Earth's creatures, and forever shadowed by a holy crusade that nearly wiped out all that we have become. The story of humanity is far grander and far more tragic than we ever knew. For centuries, humanity thrived, but we were reckless. The wisdom of the ancient Jagies flowed in our veins, a power we tapped without restraint. We built towering cities, consumed the planet's resources, and waged endless wars among ourselves. We scarred our own world, poisoning the seas and burning the forests, yet our ambition only grew. Fractured and ununited, we reached for the stars, establishing fragile colonies on moons and space stations driven by competition, not harmony. The galaxy watched in silence. Then, they found us. The Valaria vassal race of the powerful Sanctari saw a chance to prove their worth, Cold-blooded and calculating, they studied humanity from the darkness between worlds, measuring us against their rigid doctrine of purity. The verdict was swift and inevitable. Our bloodline, tainted by Janari genetics, was corrupt. Exterminating us wasn't just a duty, it was an opportunity. They judged us primitive, a disorganized species unworthy of survival. They thought it would be easy. A fleet of 20 warships, forged in the shadow of the Sanctari, slipped into our solar system. The laws of physics forced them to crawl at sublight speed, their FTL drives disabled by the gravitational pull of our star. This gave us precious days. Our deep space installations in the Kuiper Belt picked up faint disturbances, ghostly shadows moving against the void. The readings were fragmented, but the alarms blared across the system. We had already suspected we weren't alone. Our long-range monitors had tracked strange movements for years. Though our technology was inferior, we braced for the storm. The Valari struck without mercy. They annihilated outer system stations and colonies, killing millions in blinding flashes of light. They expected fear to shatter our will, but they were wrong. It forged us. For the first time in our history, the fractured nations and rival factions of humanity stood as one. Our initial weapons were crude against their advanced arsenal, but the Valari's arrogance became their weakness. By attacking our installations, they exposed themselves. We gathered data with every battleship schematics, weapon signatures, and tactical patterns. We fought back with a courage they couldn't comprehend, adapting in real time. Our losses were devastating, but each skirmish was a lesson paid for in blood. By the time their fleet reached Saturn, they realized something had changed. We were striking back with calculated precision. Every tactic was countered, every weapon met with an improvised defense. The tide was beginning to shift. Then came the revelation that changed everything. Deep beneath the African soil, we rediscovered the wreck of the Gaia, the ancient Janari vessel that had seeded our world. Though most of its secrets were lost to time, we reverse-engineered fragments of its technology, powerful energy conduits, advanced shielding matrices, and adaptive combat algorithms. It was just enough to give us a fighting chance, enough to push the Valari back. But our true ace in the hole lay hidden in the rings of Saturn. Orbiting the gas giant was a secret military base, home to an experimental warship, the Aegis Veil, for nearly a century. We had been secretly developing cloaking technology, a marvel born from pure human ingenuity. It began as a physicist's theory about bending light, evolved into microscopic experiments with metamaterials, and finally culminated in a full-scale prototype warship, untested in combat but ready. As the Valari fleet pressed its attack, the Aegis Veil struck. Utterly invisible, it latched onto a Valari corvette, a silent predator in the void. A daring infiltration mission began. Our soldiers breached the alien hull to extract intelligence and escape. The cost was high. Brave lives were lost in the firefight. But the Aegis Veil slipped away unscathed, carrying the secrets that would win the war. The biology of our enemy, the architecture of their ships, the weaknesses in their command structure. For the first time, we were no longer the prey. We were the hunters. Armed with knowledge, united by defiance, and driven by the very adaptability the Valari had condemned us for. They came to our home to exterminate a primitive species. Instead, they awakened something far more dangerous. A species born from survival, forged in war, and now ready to fight for its place among the stars. The Valari fleet entered our solar system with the chilling arrogance of conquerors. 20 ships, a gliding vanguard of predators, sliced through the void, their intentions clear. Humanity had no fleet to meet them. We were scattered, a collection of outposts, defensive stations, and experimental bases. But where we lacked raw power, we found our strength in something more fundamental: ingenuity. Our uncanny ability to adapt. At Saturn, they expected a swift, brutal victory. What they found was a hornet's nest. The Saturn military base, a lonely outpost, became the first anvil upon which the Valari hammer would strike. Armed with experimental weapons and shield arrays, our defenders adapted in real time. Railguns, once designed to harmlessly deflect meteors, were recalibrated. Their slugs were accelerated to impossible velocities, tearing through Valari hull plating. Crude shield disruptors, barely tested, pulsed with chaotic energy, destabilizing the aliens' sophisticated energy barriers just long enough for our volleys to find their mark. Volari were stunned. They lost ships to frigates and a destroyer before overwhelming the base with concentrated fire. But Saturn's sacrifice was not in vain. Every nanosecond of that desperate battle was recorded. Every piece of data transmitted across the system, a final, defiant gift to the rest of humanity. It was the data that gave us a fighting chance, precious time to learn, to adapt. By the time the Volari advanced toward Jupiter, they encountered a humanity transformed. No longer were we scattered targets. We fought with a unified, desperate ferocity. The railguns that had been our meteor shields were now our primary offensive weapons, modified and deadlier. Our shield disruptors were refined, their frequencies precisely tuned to exploit the weaknesses we had observed at Saturn. The Volari watched in disbelief as their advanced warships were punctured by weapons they had dismissed as primitive. 3 more of their vessels tumbled into the void, their wreckage a silent testament to our rapid evolution. The battle at Jupiter was a maelstrom of fire and resolve. Our installations, now linked and coordinated, fired relentlessly. We had the full picture. Now their weapons, their shields, their tactics. Every strike was calculated, every maneuver designed to exploit a newly discovered flaw. The Volari retaliated with overwhelming force, shattering our platforms and killing thousands. But each loss only hardened our will to survive. At the heart of their fleet was the Vindicator of Flame, a monstrous flagship that had purged entire civilizations. Its name was a whisper of terror across the galaxy. But here, against a species that refused to break, the Vindicator faltered. Its shields flickered and died under our relentless assault, its hull scarred by hypervelocity railgun slugs. Humanity was adapting faster than the Volari could possibly comprehend. We were turning the tide. Badly damaged, humiliated, the Vindicator of Flame broke formation and fled. We had no fleet to pursue. The Volari crossed the Kuiper Belt, engaged their faster-than-light drives, and vanished into the abyss. Silence fell upon the solar system. Wreckage drifted between the planets. Our installations lay in ruins, and millions were gone. But we were still here. We had survived, and more than that, we had learned. In the aftermath, we recovered what we could. Intact Volari shuttles, their systems still humming. Fragments of their advanced weaponry and shield generators. For months, our greatest minds worked tirelessly, reverse engineering the alien technology. Our own systems were transformed. Energy conduits refined, propulsion improved, weapons recalibrated with a terrifying new precision. We know they will return, not with 20 ships, but with an armada. They will come to finish what they started. But humanity is no longer defenseless. The fires of Saturn and Jupiter forged us into something new. We are united, we are armed with their knowledge, and we are driven by the adaptability encoded in our very genes. We are a species ready to stand against the galaxy. Humanity entered a new era, an age of desperate preparation. We weren't just waiting, we were transforming. Every piece of alien technology recovered from the first raid was torn apart, studied, and integrated. Every scrap of knowledge became a stepping stone. Our humble cargo haulers were retrofitted into drone swarm carriers. Simple transport ships were clad in armor, becoming crude but defiant warships. All across the Kuiper Belt, our defensive stations were reinforced, forming a vast, unbroken line of guardians. It was a fleet born from necessity, imperfect and inefficient, but it was ours. It was a symbol of our newfound unity. Months turned into a year, and then the Volari returned. This was no mere raiding party. This was a full-scale invasion. A vast armada of over 200 ships blotted out the stars. Their vessels gleamed with new, terrifying systems, weapons capable of reshaping entire worlds from light years away. And at the heart of their formation loomed a new flagship, a vessel of nightmare proportions, the Eclipse of Sanctari. It was both fortress and temple, and deep within its core, it carried a weapon of unimaginable power. The battle began at the edge of our solar system. The Volari ships advanced with chilling confidence. Their initial volleys shattering our installations and silencing our stations in bursts of silent light. But humanity did not break. This time, we were ready. Our newly developed cloaked vessels slipped through the chaos, latching onto Valari hulls and boarding them unseen. The railguns that once protected Earth from asteroids now became our spears. Their slugs accelerated to speeds that tore through alien defenses. Experimental shield disruptors destabilized their energy barriers, creating openings for swarms of our drones to overwhelm their systems. Our losses were staggering. Every destroyed station, every fallen ship, was a gut-wrenching blow. But with each loss we learned, each destroyed human vessel transmitted vital data on Valari weaknesses. The Kuiper Belt became our crucible, a brutal classroom where our ingenuity turned desperation into a razor-sharp weapon. We were adapting faster than they could have ever predicted. Then, the eclipse of sanctity prepared to unveil its ultimate purpose. Deep within its sanctified core, a catastrophic amount of energy began to gather, a force designed not just to conquer, but to erase. Its target was locked. Earth, a desperate race against the clock, began. Our remaining cloaked ships darted through a storm of enemy fire. Boarding parties fought tooth and nail through the flagship's hallowed corridors, sacrificing themselves just to get a few meters closer to the weapons control room. They succeeded, but not perfectly. In their final moments, they managed to divert the weapon's trajectory. It fired, but not at Earth. The beam struck Neptune. The gas giant was consumed in a cataclysmic, silent explosion. Its atmosphere was torn away, its surface reshaped into a sterile, glassy sphere. Several of its moons were vaporized, but a few Triton, Proteus, and Nereid survived, scarred but intact, their fate now forever tied to ours. The sight of a planet dying galvanized us. The loss of Neptune ignited a fire in the heart of every human survivor. We fought with a ferocity that bordered on madness. Our railguns thundered in a ceaseless chorus of defiance. Our drones swarmed like angry hornets, and our cloaked ships struck at the very heart of the Valari fleet. One by one, their seemingly invincible ships began to fall. Finally, our combined fire overwhelmed the eclipse of sanctity itself. Its sanctified hull fractured, its doomsday weapon was silenced, and its core went dark forever. We had won. Outnumbered and outgunned, humanity had triumphed. The Kuiper Belt was no longer just a field of asteroids. It was sacred ground, a memorial to the First Galactic War and to the countless souls we lost. From the wreckage of the Valari ships, we salvaged wonders, new energy conduits, advanced propulsion systems, and weapons beyond our wildest dreams. We forged new fleets, real fleets this time, and refined our defenses. Humanity was transformed. We were no longer the fragile species that gazed at the stars with simple wonder. We were now warriors, survivors, innovators. We were unrecognizable. Valari had fled, their armada broken, but we knew this wasn't the end. The galaxy had taken notice. The Valari were just servants and their masters. The Sanctari themselves would one day come. The war was far from over. It had only just begun. To shield the solar system from the threats lurking in the cosmos, humanity didn't just build walls. They built outward. Military outposts sprang up on moons, asteroids, and distant planets, each one a strategic bastion. Gigantic floating fortresses were anchored in the deep void, silent sentinels keeping a watchful eye on the stars. A protective sphere of defenses 10 light-years across declared to the galaxy that Earth was no longer easy prey. With newly developed faster-than-light engines, our ships now danced across the star-strewn canvas. Shields shimmered with unprecedented resilience, and our weapons pulsed with a power we could only have dreamed of just decades ago. Across the system, shipyards thundered without rest, churning out a fleet of vessels that stood as a testament to our sheer will to survive and our boundless ingenuity. But the greatest discoveries were found not in the stars, but within the wreckage of the alien ship, Gaia. We learned of our forgotten inheritance from the Genari, an ancient and powerful race. We learned of the Sanctari, a fanatical empire hell-bent on a crusade for genetic purity, and of their vassals, the Valari, who enforced their dogma. These revelations sent shockwaves through our society, igniting fierce debates in every council and colony. Should we embrace our Genari legacy, or cast it aside to avoid the Sanctari's wrath? The choice was made for us. The threat was real and relentless. The Sanctari and their vassals would never stop. So, humanity chose war. A bold, comprehensive plan was drafted. First, we would neutralize the Valari, the vassal race, closest to our territory. Their defeat would secure our frontier and broadcast a clear message across the galaxy. Then, we would systematically isolate and strike the other vassals, preventing them from uniting against us. Every battle would become a lesson, every captured ship a source of new knowledge, and every conquered system a new home. This war against the vassals would be our grand rehearsal for the inevitable final confrontation with the Sanctari themselves. The Second Galactic War ignited with a storm of fire. Humanity launched simultaneous assaults across multiple Valari systems, overwhelming their defenses with sheer, brutal saturation. The cost was staggering. Hundreds of our ships were turned to stardust, and countless lives were lost, but the enemy bled just as we did. The Valari fleets, once so arrogant, crumbled under our relentless ferocity. Their sacred temples of purity became war zones, their hallowed halls echoing with the sounds of human defiance. In their desperation, the Valari called for aid from other vassal races. Reinforcements trickled in frigates, cruisers, and carriers from species bound by the Sanctari's rigid creed. The conflict escalated, becoming a multi-species war fought across the vastness of space. At one point, we were pushed to the brink. Our fleet, once numbering in the thousands, was reduced to a mere 5%, just 500 battered vessels limping through the void. But even on the edge of defeat, our greatest strength shone through: adaptability. Cloaked ships slipped behind enemy lines, sabotaging reactors and disabling weapon systems from within. Swarms of autonomous drones struck in perfectly coordinated waves, overwhelming their point defenses. Our railguns fired in synchronized volleys, tearing through the hulls of their mightiest cruisers and carriers. The Valari were undone. Their fleets were shattered, their worlds were captured, and their empire was broken. They weren't annihilated, scattered survivors fled into the dark, but their systems now belonged to us, where their temples once stood. Our shipyards now rose, where their sanctified monuments once gleamed. Our defensive grids now hummed with power. We transformed the Valari's domain into our own bastion of survival. A forward operating base pointed directly at the heart of the Sanctari Empire. Our victory sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The remaining vassal races convened in secret, whispering in their councils about how to deal with this upstart species that had proven itself not just a survivor, but a conqueror capable of defeating fleets many times its own size. The Second Galactic War had ended in a stunning triumph, but this was only the beginning. The galaxy was no longer a distant mystery. It was a battlefield. Humanity had risen from the ashes of near extinction to become a galactic power, armed with the legacy of the Jinari and our own unbreakable spirit. The vassal races were now preparing to unite, and the Sanctari themselves loomed on the horizon as the ultimate adversary. The war for survival had evolved into a war for dominance, and the challenge that lay ahead was greater than any we had ever faced. While humanity was busy building up its defenses and expanding its shipyards, a storm was gathering in the shadows. The vassal races, those loyal to the ancient Sanctari, had formed a secret alliance. They called themselves the Council of Purity, a coalition united by two powerful forces. Their devotion to their old masters and a growing fear of humanity's unstoppable rise. In hidden chambers, deep within their territories, they began to plot. They weren't just planning a small skirmish. This was a grand counteroffensive, designed to shatter humanity's momentum completely. Their plan was nothing short of audacious. They would strike at key human colonies, hitting where it hurt the most. They would disrupt the vital supply lines that fed humanity's expansion, choking off resources and reinforcements. And most terrifying of all, they were developing constructs, massive machines, with the power to manipulate the very stars themselves. For months, the Council of Purity worked in absolute secrecy. They rehearsed their strategies, running countless simulations to predict every possible outcome. Their fleets were quietly assembled, put on standby, just waiting for the signal to unleash their devastating power. But here's the thing about secrets in a galaxy-spanning civilization. They rarely stay secret for long. Humanity had learned a hard lesson about the importance of intelligence. Our own spies, masters of disguise and deception, had already moved quietly among the vassal races. They were the ghosts in the machine, the whispers in the dark. These disguised operatives intercepted encrypted transmissions. They painstakingly mapped hidden bases. And piece by piece, they uncovered fragments of the Council's terrifying designs. The puzzle was coming together, and the picture it painted was grim. The moment the Council tried to finalize their grand offensive, they found themselves facing an unexpected disruption. Human space marines, elite soldiers trained for surgical precision strikes, infiltrated their most secure strongholds. Silent boarding actions and lightning-fast covert raids took down key communication nodes before the alarm could even be raised. What was meant to be a perfectly coordinated, unified attack began to crumble under the relentless weight of sabotage. The Council's fleets were still there, poised and ready, but their command structure was shattered. Cohesion was broken. When the full extent of the Council's plot was revealed to the human public, it sent a shockwave across our colonies. The news was electrifying. Leaders gathered in emergency sessions debating the far-reaching implications. Our best scientists were given the intercepted data, working around the clock to understand the star-influencing constructs. Military strategists immediately began drafting countermeasures. On every human world, a profound change occurred. The protests that had once called for peace and caution faded away, replaced by a steely, unified determination. The people finally understood the truth. The galaxy was preparing to challenge our very existence, and any hesitation would be an invitation for disaster. The Council of Purity had set out to prove that humanity was unworthy, a fleeting anomaly in the galaxy. But in their arrogance, they had underestimated us. Their secrecy was pierced, their unity was shaken, and their ultimate plans were exposed. Humanity had not yet faced the full might of the vassal races, not by a long shot. But we had caught a glimpse of what was coming, and that glimpse allowed us to prepare. The lesson was crystal clear for everyone. This war would not be won by fleets and firepower alone. It would be fought and won in the shadows and whispers, in the dark spaces between the stars. Humanity's survival would depend not just on our strength, but on our vigilance, our intelligence, and the courage of the unseen heroes who fight our battles in the dark. The galaxy held its breath. Whispers from spies had turned into a terrifying truth. The Council of Purity was building a superweapon, construct vast enough to erase entire star systems. They called it their triumph, their final solution. To humanity, it was a death sentence. Time was a luxury we no longer had. Every second counted. In a show of absolute dominance, the Council decided to test their new toy. They aimed it at the Rigel system, a bustling outer colony home to millions. On Rigel 4, families looked up at the stars, unaware of the doom gathering in the void. The construct began to hum, a low, menacing thrum that promised annihilation. Its energy levels soared, preparing to unleash a wave of destruction. We couldn't wait. We had to strike first. A battle of biblical proportions erupted in the darkness between worlds. Thousands of ships, human and council, clashed in a storm of light and fire. The sky became a canvas of blazing phasers and shattered metal. We fought with everything we had, fueled by desperation and a refusal to die. The cost was staggering, but with every loss we learned, we adapted. Among us was Commander Kalen Drax, a strategic genius who had become obsessed with the Council's technology. He pored over every stolen schematic, every piece of data, until he found a single, hidden flaw. A vulnerability in the construct's core that, if exploited, could turn its own power against it. Instead of firing, it would collapse inward, blossoming into a harmless, beautiful star. But there was a catch. To trigger this collapse, a human-made device had to be physically attached to the construct's central conduit. Deep within its mechanical heart, a plan was forged, a gamble on which the fate of millions rested. First, a massive diversionary assault. Hundreds of our ships would charge head-on, drawing the enemy's fire and attention. While the Council was distracted, a single cloaked vessel would slip through the chaos, latch onto the construct's hull and breach its defenses. From there, an elite Marine strike team would storm the corridors, fighting their way to the core. Their commander would attach the device, allowing Drax to work his magic from afar. Extraction was a hope, not a promise. If time ran out, they would become legends. The mission began. Our ships surged forward, a wave of defiance against an unyielding wall of fire. Many fell, but enough broke through to create the diversion we needed. In the ensuing chaos, the cloaked ship made its move, a ghost in the storm. It docked, and the Marines poured into the metallic guts of the beast. The clock was ticking. 3 minutes until the construct fired. The team fought through waves of Council defenders, their phasers lighting up the dark, sterile corridors. 2 minutes and 15 seconds as the battle for Rigel raged on outside, a symphony of destruction. They reached the entrance to the conduit chamber, only to be met by a squad of elite Council fighters. A brutal, close-quarters firefight erupted. 1 minute left. The Marines pushed through. Their losses heavy, but their will unbroken. The device was attached, and it hummed to life, a small beacon of hope in the heart of despair. Back on the fleet's command bridge, Kalen Drax's fingers danced across his console. 26 seconds, his first attempts failed. The construct's security systems were fighting back. 10 seconds. He refused to give up, recalling a tiny, overlooked detail from his research. He adjusted his approach and slammed the final command. 9, 8, 7. The construct pulsed, preparing to fire. 6, 5, 4. Raw energy surged through its frame. 3, 2, 1. A blinding flash and then silence. The flaw was triggered. The immense energy folded in on itself. The galaxy killer imploded, collapsing into a radiant, silent bloom of light that gently faded into the void. Cheers erupted across the human fleet. Rigel 4 was safe. But inside the dying construct, there was no escape for the infiltration team. They had bought the galaxy its future with their lives, heroes immortalized in the silent stars. The Council of Purity, so confident in their power, trembled. They thought their weapon would inspire terror. Instead, it had forged humanity into an unbreakable shield of defiance. We had faced their apocalypse, dismantled it, and sent a clear message to the cosmos. We will not be broken. We will not back down. Humanity stood at the height of its newfound glory. Songs of victory echoed across colonies. Honors were bestowed upon the fallen, and tales of heroism became the stuff of legend. But as humanity celebrated, the galaxy held its breath. The Council of Purity, smarting from their humiliating defeat, was not finished. Their shipyards thundered day and night, churning out warships at a relentless pace. Their weapons were refined, their shields strengthened, their tactics sharpened for one last desperate stand. Humanity, too, prepared. They were not the same people who had first faced the Council. Lessons from every battle were studied, every weakness catalogued, every strength amplified. New defenses were erected, new weapons forged, and new tactics devised. But humanity had one last card to play, a secret they had kept hidden from the galaxy. They called it their crucible, but this wasn't a forge of steel and fire. It was a crucible of mind and code. Years of painstaking research combined with the legacy of the ancient Gennari and the knowledge embedded within humanity's own genes had culminated in a creation of staggering genius, an artificial intelligence designed to augment their natural adaptability in the heat of combat. It was a network, a consciousness, installed in every ship, every suit, every piece of equipment humanity could wield. They named it Aegis Novae, the shield of light, the mind of war, the guardian of humanity's destiny. While the Council dug their trenches, fortifying their territory for a war of attrition, humanity sharpened its spear, preparing for a single, decisive assault. The fate of the stars would be decided in the clash to come. On the dawn of March 3rd, 2431, the mighty Earth fleet gathered. With a silent, blinding flash, thousands of ships leapt into faster-than-light travel. Their destination, the very heart of the Council's domain. 5 days later, they emerged in the Arender system, a heavily fortified nexus of Council power. Thousands of enemy ships bristled with glowing weapons, poised on the brink of either annihilation or ultimate triumph. For a moment, there was silence. Then the Council fired the first salvo. Blinding beams of energy streaked across the void, forcing human ships to scatter and weave. Some vessels faltered under the onslaught, their shields buckling. Others held firm, and then humanity returned fire. Railguns thundered with concussive force. Corvettes unleashed searing streams of plasma. Carriers opened their hangar bays, releasing endless waves of fighters that swarmed like angry hornets. The void became pure chaos, a maelstrom of light and fury. Battle songs, the anthems of a species fighting for its future, echoed through the fleets, broadcast across every channel. Humanity fought with a relentless, unified resolve, their voices rising above the deafening din of war. Ship after ship fell, both human and council, transforming into silent, drifting debris. But Aegis Nova was at work, learning, adapting, predicting. The council's numbers began to dwindle. Their formations broke. Humanity pressed forward, gaining ground, breaking through the trenches of resistance one by one. At last the council faltered. Fleets were shattered, their command structure in disarray. Their ships were either captured or scattered into a desperate retreat. Some fled into deep space, carrying with them the shame of failure, unable to protect their most vital system. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Humanity had risen from the ashes, and the Council of Purity had fallen. Far away, in the sanctified halls of the Sanctari, the highest leader of the galaxy's oldest empire sat upon a throne of immense power. He listened to the reports, and a slow, calculating smile spread across his face. It was a smile that carried both menace and a spark of genuine curiosity. The rise of humanity had officially begun. The question now lingered across the stars, whispered in the corridors of power and the back alleys of forgotten worlds. Would this defiant young race challenge the Sanctari themselves, or would they dwindle and fade before the greatest empire the galaxy had ever known? Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more tales from this universe.